Welcome back to our channel. Beyond the Gates is gearing up to take viewers into a day full of surprises, where a single decision could cause even the most solid-seeming relationships to fracture. This time, the spotlight is on Smitty and Martin. After Martin has repeatedly hurt and disappointed Smitty, the tables suddenly turn when Smitty does something Martin likely never imagined his husband would do. But that's not all. Carlton holds a crucial piece of information for Ted, Nicole has an update for Vanessa, and Bill is inching toward a potentially disastrous situation. Even more notably, Eva's words seem to strike a nerve with Leslie, forcing a strong reaction. Meanwhile, Shanice receives an unexpected request, and Haley finds herself in yet another confrontation with Ashley. So what did Smitty do to disappoint Martin so deeply? Is this merely a broken promise, or a sign of a larger issue quietly brewing in their marriage? Let's dive into the key events of the August 18, 2026 episode of Beyond the Gates. I know this theory might sound a bit bold, but could all these recent events really be nothing more than a coincidence? Specifically when we look at the situation unfolding between Smitty and Martin. At face value, we are looking at a simple, albeit unfortunate, scheduling conflict. Smitty and Martin have always stood side by side, a united front, especially after helping Tyrell navigate the crushing weight of his heartbreak. Smitty promised to be at Martin's charity basketball game. He looked his husband in the eye and assured him he would be in those bleachers, cheering him on, providing that visible pillar of support that a political figure like Martin desperately needs. But now Tuesday is approaching, and it is becoming glaringly obvious that Smitty is going to disappoint Martin. He is going to be a no-show. It seems like a minor domestic hiccup, right? A busy man misses a local charity event. But no, wait, before I talk about that, I have to reiterate this. Smitty does not just break promises to Martin without a massive, overwhelming reason. And that reason is undeniably tied to his true crime podcast. Shonda, Martin's fiercely protective campaign manager, has been adamant that she does not want Smitty anywhere near this podcast. She claims she is worried about optics, terrified that any misstep or controversial revelation could derail Martin's entire political future. But what if she is not just worried about the campaign's public image? What if she is terrified of what Smitty is actually going to uncover? It's strange, really strange. And the more I think about it, the stranger it gets. Who benefits if the truth is concealed here? Shonda benefits. She is manipulating the narrative, trying to silence Smitty under the guise of protecting Martin. But what if the traitor is already inside the house? What if the crime Smitty is investigating ties directly back to campaign donors, or worse, to Shonda's own past actions? Picture Martin standing on that basketball court, the squeak of sneakers echoing around him, looking up at the stands expecting to see the man he loves, only to find an empty seat. The emotional toll of that single moment could fracture their entire foundation. Will Martin assume that Smitty is simply putting a hobby over their marriage? Or will the cold realization dawn on him that Smitty has silently continued his investigation despite Shonda's explicit demands to stop? Martin is going to be faced with a devastating choice. Tell the truth and lose everything, or remain silent and let the tragedy continue to spread. Will he choose to protect his husband's relentless pursuit of justice, or will he side with Shonda to protect his political ambitions? First, the most plausible prediction. Smitty just got caught up interviewing a crucial witness for the podcast and genuinely lost track of time, leading to a standard marital argument. Then comes a darker possibility. Shonda actively sabotaged Smitty's schedule, feeding him a false lead just to keep him away from the game. Deliberately creating a rift between the husbands so she can isolate Martin. Finally, a shocking twist that still fits the logic. Smitty skipped the game because the final, undeniable clue in his true crime podcast points directly to Martin's campaign funding. But that doesn't explain her reaction. If Martin really is behind it all, why would Shonda be the one panicking so visibly while Martin remains relatively calm? No, Shonda is the key. She is the one with the ulterior motives. hiding behind a flawless facade of professional concern. A single broken promise on a Tuesday might just be the opening salvo of the greatest crisis the Martin-Smitty marriage has ever faced. What am I saying? Oh right, I need to look at the other side of town, because the manipulation does not stop with Shonda. We have to talk about the bizarre, suffocating dynamic between Ted, Carlton, and Nicole. Ted is playing a psychological game that is so subtle, so insidious, that I almost missed it on the first watch. Ted and Carlton are business partners. They are friends. Yet Ted has completely accepted and even spoken highly of Carlton dating his ex-wife, Nicole. He actively prefers Carlton over Keel. Why? Why would a powerful, possessive man want his close friend dating his ex-wife? Actually, this detail might be meaningless, but it could be the whole issue. Ted wants Carlton with Nicole because Ted can control Carlton. Carlton is a known entity, a man tethered to Ted by business and loyalty. Keel, on the other hand, is a wild card. Ted is keeping Nicole in a gilded cage, monitoring her romantic life through his business partner. And now Carlton is about to sit down and deliver some major news to Ted. It is painfully obvious that they are breaking up. Carlton is stepping back. But did he voluntarily withdraw, realizing that Nicole's heart has already tilted irreversibly toward Keel? Or did Carlton finally see the invisible strings Ted has attached to both of them and decide to cut himself loose before he gets strangled? Nicole thinks she is breaking free. She is going to sit down with Vanessa and excitedly talk about this fresh start with Keel. She feels liberated, thinking she has finally shed the heavy, toxic baggage of her past with Ted. She is completely innocent in this specific dynamic, blissfully unaware that she is being manipulated by her ex-husband from the shadows. But then Vanessa is going to drop a seemingly innocent comment about Keel's son performing at an open mic night. It sounds like a sweet, supportive detail. A nice slice of life moment, but it is not. It is a blaring warning bell. It is a stark reminder that Keel's life is infinitely more complex than Nicole wants to admit. She is trading one complicated, messy dynamic for another. Will this realization make her pull back? Will she recognize that her so-called fresh start is already tangled in someone else's deep family history? And what about Ted? Ted is not going to take Carlton's resignation lying down. If Carlton is out, Ted loses his surveillance feed. Is Ted controlling Nicole's emotions too deeply? Absolutely. Will Ted show up at her door, demanding she make a choice, imposing his will under the guise of caring for her well-being? If Ted actually confronts her, Nicole's reaction will be explosive. She will finally see the bars of the cage. And Shanice is watching all of this unfold. She sees Ted's overreach. She sees the pathological control. Shanice might be the only one who can step in and tell Nicole the brutal truth about Ted's suffocating grip, but doing so would put Shanice directly in Ted's crosshairs. But speaking of suffocating grips and crosshairs, we have to transition to the absolute nightmare unfolding at the hospital. Bill's hospital stay is a complete disaster. Nothing is going right, his health is precarious, and the environment is chaotic. And Haley, his current wife, is making it infinitely worse. She is picking massive, public fights with the Department of Transportation. She is clashing violently with Ashley. Why? Why on earth is a wife picking public, hysterical fights when her husband is lying vulnerable in a hospital bed? It makes no sense, unless it makes perfect sense. It's strange, really strange. And the more I think about it, the stranger it gets. This is a calculated psychological attack. Haley is creating a circus. She is generating so much noise, so much friction, that Bill will feel utterly overwhelmed by his own environment. She wants to create immense pressure, making him feel that staying in the hospital is more exhausting and dramatic than leaving. She wants him to check out immediately. Why? Because as long as Bill is under the care of doctors, Haley is not in control of his body or his information. What is she hiding? What is in those blood tests or medical charts that she desperately needs to keep buried? Imagine the scene. Haley screaming at Ashley right outside Bill's room. The sheer volume of it, the calculated, weaponized hysteria. Will this confrontation happen right in front of Bill? If it does, Bill is lying there, physically weak, but his mind is sharp. He has to realize that Haley is putting on a show. And if he realizes she is hiding something, his entire world fractures. He is trapped in a bed, vulnerable to a woman who might be orchestrating his demise. That brings me to the most chilling part of this entire scenario. Shanice receives a sudden, unexpected request at the hospital. It has to be from Bill. He cannot trust his wife. He cannot trust the nurses who are constantly badgering him. He calls Shanice into the room, pulls the curtain shut, and begs her to secretly check his medical records. He suspects foul play. He suspects he is being misdiagnosed, or worse, actively poisoned. But what if Haley finds out? What if Haley walks in just as Shanice is looking at the chart? The danger here is palpable. Every character in that hospital wing is facing a dangerous choice. Tell the truth and lose everything, or remain silent and let the tragedy continue to spread. First, the most plausible prediction. Haley is just severely stressed by the dot and taking it out on Ashley, and Bill is just being a paranoid patient. Then comes a darker possibility. Haley is deliberately sabotaging his recovery to gain control of his assets before he can change his will. Finally, a shocking twist that still fits the logic. Haley isn't trying to kill Bill. She is trying to hide the fact that she is the one who caused his initial injury. And the hospital's toxicology reports will prove it. But that doesn't explain her reaction to Ashley. If she just wanted to hide tests, she would be charming the doctors, manipulating them with cares, not fighting them in the hallways. No, the fights are a smokescreen, a brilliant, terrifying smokescreen designed to make Bill flee. If he flees, he might just be running straight into his grave. And while we are talking about terrifying, unhinged behavior, let us look at the promotional video and the absolute powder keg that is Eva, Leslie, and Ted. Eva is finally stepping up and trying to shatter Leslie's delusions. Leslie is completely obsessed with the idea of reuniting with Ted. It is a sickness at this point, a relentless leap of false hope. Eva says something to her, something so visceral and cutting, that it triggers a massive reaction. What did Eva say to make Leslie react so violently? Did she look her mother in the eye and bluntly, mercilessly state that Ted will never, ever love her again? Did she strip away every last ounce of hope, leaving nothing but raw reality? Leslie is going to be heartbroken, yes, but more than that, she is going to be furious. Furious that her own daughter is standing against her. Furious that Eva seems to be siding with the man who discarded her. Eva is trying to save her mother from further humiliation, but she might have just handed her a loaded emotional weapon. Leslie is going to act. This is the catalyst. She is going to do something drastic. She might march straight to Ted's office or his home, demanding a final, apocalyptic confrontation. She is going to force him to look her in the eye and clarify his feelings once and for all. But how will Ted react? Ted is already spinning out over Nicole and Carlton. He is already losing control of his carefully constructed universe. If Leslie bursts in, demanding love and loyalty, Ted might snap. He might drop the polite businessman facade and destroy her with his words. If Ted coldly, brutally affirms that they are done forever, will Leslie actually accept it? Or will that final, undeniable rejection be the push that sends her over the edge into pure, unadulterated vengeance? The ultimate truth here might be even more brutal than anything the audience is imagining. Ted thinks he is the puppet master, controlling Nicole, dismissing Leslie, managing Carlton. But he is actually surrounding himself with ticking time bombs. Leslie has nothing left to lose. And a woman with nothing left to lose, who has just been stripped of her last delusion by her own daughter, is the most dangerous force in this entire town. The stage is set for absolute devastation, And I cannot wait to see who survives the fallout.